Hey everyone, welcome to the Get Your Life Together Girl podcast, the ultimate blueprint to self-love and inner peace. I'm your host, Danielle Van. As a cognitive behavioral therapist, life coach, meditation teacher, and author, I've spent my life studying and learning from the stories that make us human. It's my passion and goal to help you shift your mindset and create a lifelong revolution by teaching you about mental health, emotional intelligence, and hand over the life lessons you wished you would have learned but haven't up until now. These are the conversations to guide you into empowering who you are while you learn to live your most grounded, authentic, and balanced life. Feeling connected to yourself and the 5 master areas of your life is essential as it shows the amount of value you place within yourself. With disconnection, there is a tendency to lose sight of who you are, what you want, and most certainly what you need. That's why you and I are taking a one-on-one deep dive into what it means to feel disconnected, and then we're taking some small steps to take you on a journey home, back to the self. Being connected is an essential step into overall life ownership. So let's not wait a single moment more. Your truest self is waiting. So the Get Your Life Together Girl podcast starts right now. Feeling connected to yourself is an experience. This is an experience that I felt we absolutely had to talk about. I see it so often where we're trying to heal, we're trying to march through life, and we still do not feel connected, and therefore nothing works. So let me ask you a very important question. Do you feel connected to yourself right now? Maybe you're asking, how do I know? How do I know if I feel connected or disconnected? So let's talk about it. What does it mean to feel disconnected? Feeling disconnected is the worst way to lose yourself. It's this place of struggle with this poor relationship with yourself. The inner negative dialogue that's so critical, judgmental, and damn mean. The perfectionist tendencies that make you feel like you're never good enough. It's being caught in this endless amount and pattern of striving and seeking, punishing and controlling, withholding love from the self because you don't deserve it. It is a space where you are just really on the struggle bus, right? And you begin to disconnect from all areas of your life. I said the 5 masters just a second ago. Those 5 masters, if you're new around this place, is an experience that I teach, that I feel that everything we do falls into these 5 categories. So those 5 master areas are mental, emotional, physical, spiritual, and financial. Now, here's the thing. Those are not in a set order. They move around based on what you're doing and how you're feeling and what you're experiencing as to what's most important. But anytime we are disconnected from one area, we tend to struggle in the others. So understand that when we're talking about having our life together, having this essential step into really having life ownership, we're talking about all 5 of those masters being met. Okay? But let's go back to what it means to feel disconnected, because I think that a lot of people don't realize that disconnection is a bit different than what we think. When we're active in our lives, we're still going through the norm, we're doing all the things, we feel like we are, quote, living. But disconnection is actually when we just feel empty, numb, stuck, void of emotion. This is the worst place to live. We're just observing our lives. We're not really active. It's essentially like driving down the road, jumping out the passenger side, standing on the side of the road and waiting for the car to circle back around so that you can continue the trip. When you feel disconnected, you lose the self. You no longer recognize who you are in return. You cannot connect to the life that you want, to the partner that you have, to the things that excite you. Your soul feels exhausted and you don't have energy to do pretty much anything. And even the things that you were incredibly passionate about before feel empty. Let's talk about why this happens. And it's very important. First, old trauma finding its way back to the surface. This is a very big clue that disconnection is happening for you. You could have this constant exposure to negativity or hard experiences or unpleasant news. And when we have a threshold that keeps getting pushed further and further up, we have a tendency to emotionally detach, which means that we detach from our lives, from ourselves. And that could be a big thing. Abuse, side effects of a certain medication. This could happen, right? Change, massive change that shifts things up for you. You could also just have this feeling that you are not where you want to be, this lack mentality. This feeling disconnected can be both quick, like a snap of the finger, and it could also slowly build over time. So it could be an acute response to a situation, or it could just be that life is not what you want it to be, and therefore you're slowly moving away from the self. There are some key phrases that I often hear when detachment has occurred, and we are not centered and focused on the self. You may have already said them at some point because we do ebb and flow with our self-connection. And just know that at some point you will be disconnected. And after you hear some of these, you'll also know that it's already occurred in your life. And because we know it will happen, it's nice to have an identification of the symptoms of it, right? And how to step back into the car, per se. So I feel stuck. That's a big one. I don't know how. That's a big one. I feel numb. I don't feel anything. I just don't feel like doing anything. I don't feel like I can really even show a little bit of empathy for the situation because there's so much going on in my life. These are pretty fundamental keys to know, these clues to know that you have stepped away from the inner self-connection. All of those phrases feel like something, right? We feel our emotions. That's why they're called feelings. So just so you know, so I can put the terms, the phrases into actual feelings or actions, it would be the inability to feel emotions or feeling empty. It would be losing interest in the things that you have loved. It's becoming less involved in relationships, taking a step back. More quiet time, but it's a disconnected quiet time. It's not a time of spiritual beliefs and rebuild or good habits or, finding inner peace. This is just a loss of interest. It's becoming harsher and unkind. It's showing little to no empathy towards or for others and certainly the self. Now, before we go any deeper, I want to say this because generally when we talk about this in private session, one of the very first things that's asked is, so does that mean that distancing myself is emotionally disconnecting from the self? And the answer is no. Holding space for yourself is completely different than being emotionally detached or being financially, spiritually, emotionally, right? Mentally, all of the ways. But like any other relationship you have, the one with yourself takes time to build. It has to be loving and patient. It has to be kind. It has to have practices to build its strength, right? And again, like I said just a few minutes ago, there will be times where it's strong and it's on par and it's excellent. It's on target. And then other times it is falling apart. And so let's get back in the car. Let's get back into a place where all 5 of our masters are 100% on point. We are mentally well. We are emotionally well. We're spiritually growing. We are financially in a healthy and good space. We are physically well. All 5 are hitting perfectly, as perfect can be, right? There's no such thing, but we do have that sense of life couldn't get any better right now. And that does translate to perfection in our mind. So let's get there. How do we get there? Let's talk about the practices that we can have and do in order to put ourselves back in the car. The first one is, why do I feel this way? It's paying attention to your needs and then meeting them. If you are one who ignores your needs, dismisses those little nudgings, those feelings in your belly, in your dreams and everything, guess what? You're not paying attention to what you need and want. You have to check in with yourself regularly. I know I do this every single morning. How are you feeling, Danielle? What do you need right now? What do you really want? Remember those 4 questions that I ask all the time. Here we are. Again, they're showing up. What do I want? What do I need? How do I want to feel? How will I get there? There's a tendency that we all, have, let's be honest, where when one negative thing impacts all 5 areas or close to all 5 areas, we hyper focus on that one thing. There's this thought that happens that life is just terrible. And again, we're throwing ourselves off to the sideline instead of just paying attention to the one event saying, what do you need right now? What's going to make you feel connected in your life? And then let yourself feel. It may seem like an unnecessary thing to feel your feelings, but it is so important to reconnect with yourself. Remember, numbness is a side effect to disconnection. You must stop running from yourself. No matter how uncomfortable it is, it's okay to sit in the darkness. Remember, without dark, there is no light. You have to have contrast in your life. In order to feel connected, you must know both. So what do you need? Ask yourself that. Get it on a piece of paper. Put it down. The next one is to date yourself. That sounds funny. I don't know if you're a Peloton mom or you're a Peloton dad or you're a Peloton, human follower. I love Robin. She is one of the instructors there, and she always talks about how she dated herself before she found her husband. And this is something that I actually teach women. If you are married or not married, you can still date yourself. The world finds this an odd concept to spend time with yourself, but it is so crucial. Dating yourself means that you take time to get to know yourself better and you reconnect with the self. It's not necessarily getting your nails done, but what it is, enjoying the solitude time. Being able to get to know who you are, date yourself like you are on a date with a spouse or a potential spouse. Dating yourself is a powerful way to connect. It's so necessary. It's how we know what we want. If we don't take that downtime, we can't be open to our needs. That also puts us back into another space of reconnection, and that is through reflection. If connecting back with the self means that you are returning to something, it's really truly a chance to ask yourself, what brought me out of my space where I'm connected, and what can put me back? It's reflecting on what has made you happy in the past. What's made you feel alive? What's going to give you an idea of how to enjoy your life? Create sacred time, right? Even if it's 5 minutes, making sure that you actually have that sacred time with the self. Like I said, dating yourself. It's going to allow you to get into that really beautiful space of knowing what has worked in the past, not necessarily recreating that space, but elevating that space. And as you spend time, you practice self-compassion. When we go back to center, when we find ourselves again, come back home, there is a tendency to offer some guilt, blame, and shame for shutting down, for letting go, for not trusting ourselves. And when we're not compassionate with ourselves, the first thing we want to do is wall up. We increase our defense in order that we don't feel all the things that we were trying to keep out in the first place. Self-compassion is shared in humanity. It knows that we're alive. It's understanding that our mistakes and imperfections are a part of this human experience. And it allows us to see ourselves in that imperfection. And when we try to remind ourselves that everyone makes mistakes, everyone steps away, everyone doesn't always keep the 5 master areas in the most perfect harmony, we can take a deep breath. We can know that it's okay. In order to step back, we must actually allow ourselves to be okay with that fact. We have to feel. We have to spend time. We have to practice mindfulness. We have to be compassionate. That reminds me of a quote that I've loved for longer than I can even remember, maybe high school. It's been a hot 50 billion years. The quote is, "Who looks outside dreams. Who looks inside awakes." It's by Carl Jung. Isn't that the perfect description of everything we've talked about to this point? When we're connected inside, it means that we're being attentive and attuned to what's going on inside of us. It means that at the macro level, there's a deep understanding of our own makeup and knowing that there are various dimensions and layers of our being. And when we offer ourselves that compassion, we're gifting ourselves the privilege of taking our own hand, of being in the beautiful awareness of our lives. So as we come to this place, let's look outside a little bit so that we can absolutely connect on all levels. And that looks like following your energy. Your body always knows, right? Your brain knows, your heart knows. Your head's always going to try to pull you in one direction and distract you with endless thoughts. But outside of you, when you're making decisions from the inside out, you're watching and you're connecting with that heart space, you can actually tap into the energy and allow that inner voice to guide you. This is intimate self-connection. There is no way around that. When you're listening, when you are watching yourself and the energy in which you are taking in and putting out, the body's wisdom guides you. Your body is constantly communicating with you through the sensations and your feelings that you have. When something's right for you, your body may soften. You may feel yourself relax. With a deep breath, you feel lighter. If something's not right, guess what happens? You feel tighter, heavier, more awake and aware. Safety is a question. Ask yourself, how does this make me feel? And then tune in to receive the answer. Follow the energy. When we have compassion, we have the ability to follow it easier. When we are in alignment and connected, we can follow it easier. It takes time. Tune into the beauty around you too. That's an outside thing. It's a mirror, really. If you look around and appreciate everything that is around you for its uniqueness, its beauty and specialness, guess what happens? That outside reflection becomes the conversation with the self. What you reflect is produced out in the world and vice versa. So when that disconnection and negativity starts to arise, stop it in your tracks and replace it with something beautiful. Tune in, tap in, get connected, and then revel back again in your own connection and listen. Listen lovingly. Speaking of listening lovingly, support yourself lovingly, outside and inside. This is a really beautiful way to awaken that connection. And what do I mean? It's looking at the thoughts. If you tear yourself down and criticize yourself with your thoughts, you're not empowering to support yourself. You're actually working for the disconnection. So what's going to bring you back to yourself? What's going to uplift you? How can you choose to be more loving, a supporter of your own life instead of breaking yourself down? A really great question in this element of all of this is, what could I think about right now that would support and empower me? Not in spite of or in lieu of, where we're drawing our mind back to the negativity, but instead, what would support me right now? What can I do to lovingly support my thoughts being healthy and follow that train? When you are loving in your thoughts, you're going to be far more loving in your body with presence and kindness. You have to move your body and have to move into your body, because that too is a form of self-love. It is a form of self-connection. Ask your body, what do you need? What can help you feel connected to not only the self, but the world around you? And then move accordingly. You don't have to rush. You don't have to always worry, but what can you do to nourish yourself on every level? The soul level, the physical level, the mental, spiritual, physical. See how that all works? See how this all comes back into one circular motion? The 5 masters. That's what we want to do. And then you have to make time for the little loves. That's an air quote, okay? Little loves. I want you to think about that. Love is nothing more at the beginning than connection. And so what can you do to build connection? How can you make time for your little loves? What does that mean? What makes you smile? What warms your heart? What fills you with joy? What gives you a sense of happiness? What sparks your dopamine? Is it eating a favorite piece of chocolate, or looking at a beautiful painting, or listing out all of the gratitudes that you have in your life? What practices are your little loves? For me, it's running, it's working out, it's yoga, it's spending time with my family, it's journaling, it's buying my favorite candle. It is living as if today is the special occasion. I want to say that again because it's so important, and it is all about connection. It's living as if today is the special occasion. Think about it this way. Putting something on the shelf and waiting for another day is a disconnection. We put it, it's off for something else. When we are fully engaged in the now, we're using that thing that you have a potential to put on the shelf and really engaging today. It's so important. We do this so often. We buy the favorite candle at the store and we set it out unburned because we'll do it when guests come over. I know I was guilty of that. About 10 years ago, I decided, you know what, forget this. I am absolutely going to light the candle that makes me excited, that connects something. It's a little love. I'm going to wear the dress that maybe seems a little too overdressed for the occasion, but I feel damn good in it. So guess what? That's a little love. I'm going to wear the expensive jewelry. I'm going to engage in the things that make me feel good. I'm not going to wait for another day. Every time you make time for yourself in the small little loves, you absolutely connect. What are your little loves? What can you do so that you can listen, feel, and nourish? When you revel in your own company, you listen to your body's wisdom, you create a sacred space. That sacred space is in your body. It's in your mind. It's in your heart. It's in your soul. And every time you are operating from any of those sacred spaces, the outside world begins to feel different. When you treat yourself, you pamper yourself, you give yourself what you need, so much changes. Master a skill, set goals, be measurable in your attention and awareness. Set yourself up to be realistic while you're obtaining. Be timely. Practice all the things that feed you, because what is so important to really point out that I hope you've gathered all the way through this is when you are connected, you're trusting yourself. When you're not, you don't trust yourself. Reconnection is a step-by-step process. It's letting yourself feel. It's spending time. It's communicating. It's building trust inward and outward. It's understanding how to meet your own needs. It's being kind, that compassion piece, not judging yourself harshly, and accepting that if I go inward, outward changes too. Your inner voice represents the part of you that you've always believed to be whole. Now, understand there's a difference between your brain chatter and that inner voice. Brain chatter has a negative slant a lot of times. It wants to keep you safe. And what I'm talking about is listening within somewhat of the hidden parts of you, the old scared parts of you, the one that feels a little less threatened now that there's so much space. The one that is the little small child saying, hey, will you feed me the needs in which were never fed before? It's this place of self-love and feeling connected. Work on connection. Write down your dreams. Just be in it. Your body has a wisdom to it. Follow it. Pay attention. In everything I've mentioned, I've kind of weaved back and forth between inner and outer. Normally it's a little bit more organized, but I wanted you to know that there is no rhyme or reason to any of the disconnection. Sometimes things come in, it dysregulates us. It asks us to be present in whatever way we can. Okay? And so whatever way you can right now, do it. For some people, stepping away from the self is their coping mechanism to not get overwhelmed, to not be too far down. And yet you have to understand that numbing yourself to emotions and feelings is not healthy. Indeed, frequently turning off your emotions can lead to so many unhealthy behaviors. And often it's hard to turn on the emotions again. We see sickness. I know I've experienced that. We see major episodes of life just burning down around you, alcohol, drug use, risky sexual behaviors. There's all kinds of things that can lead us into a space that's not healthy. If you have difficulty practicing and processing your emotion, get help. Know that when we feel disconnected, it is our body's way of saying, hey, something is not right here. We want to be aware. We want to feel a sense of aliveness, not lack. That is the task. If you're feeling unsettled, don't disassociate. Don't step completely away. Instead, seek the connection. Don't shut down. Seek the connection. Don't throw everything to the wayside in hopes that the car's going to circle back around, because some relationships, they're not willing to fight for you like you're going to fight for them. So don't burn it all down. Decide what you need. Decide where the disconnection lies, and then do something about it. Now, if you've heard all of these things and you said, you know what, I've tried and I just still don't feel connected, I want you to know that there are some dangers. There are some mental and physical complications that come up when we live disconnected from the self. I want you to be aware that the longer you stay in this state, the harder it is to fight your way back. Didn't say impossible. I just said that sometimes we see this. It's depression and anxiety. It's lower self-esteem. It's these limiting beliefs that are 100% on point and become the excuse for everything. High blood pressure, which is interesting, right? Because we're just eating mindlessly, we're doing the thing, and we are creating a physical mess of the body because we are not connected with the mind, body, spirit. We have increased aggression and obesity. We have suppressed immune system issues, fatigue, a loss of energy. When you disconnect, you can actually have mental ramifications. Understand that you must know how far the disconnection goes and seek help when you need it. There's nothing wrong with it. The process can be painful to go from disconnection to connection, but understand it's going to happen. So if you want to have a more fulfilling life, learn to reconnect with the true self, because you will have more fulfillment. It is available to you. You just have to be willing to put the time and effort in place to get there. When you do, I guarantee you're going to be extremely surprised by how much shift happens so quickly. When you put yourself first, when you put the connection first, everything changes. And it is an essential step into getting your life together. Thank you so much for listening to the Get Your Life Together Girl podcast. If you've enjoyed these tips for bettering your life and are seeking daily inspiration and additional tools and tips, follow me on social media at Get Your Life Together Girl on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, Clapper, and now Threads. You can also visit the show notes, my blog, and my website at getyourlifetogethergirl.com. While there, visit the merch shop and the downloadables, courses. My gosh, there's so much. I also invite you to please review this episode, as it opens us up to those who may be needing information just like this. Thank you so much for listening and being a valuable part of this community. Until next time, be kind to yourself and others.